Well, hey there, guys and gals. Welcome to Miyagi Mornings, episode 99, right? So we got one more before Jack disappears for a few weeks on vacation. I will be here next week some, but I will not be doing Miyagi Mornings because it would be like 3 episodes, and I'm not doing Miyagi Mornings in any week where there can't be 5. We're staying with even, 0 and 5s at the end of each week. I'm sorry, that's just me. Anyway, today's episode sort of adds on to yesterday's. I guess maybe yesterday's I made like if you were taking a course like a prerequisite for thinking, not necessarily doing exactly what I said yesterday with financial modeling for part of this question, because this person was sneaky, but they did it well. So they actually asked 3 questions in one on the thread at MeWe. And if you want to get your stuff on Miyagi Mornings, I'm telling you, follow me on MeWe. Go to the top of my profile, see a sticky post there, and post there. I've probably answered half of what's been posted, and I'm working with the newest ones first, and if there's nothing there, then I'm going back through. So if you get on board, you're likely to get your question on the air. Anyway, so the question today was automation for efficiency, background how to find better ways to do what we've always done and think outside the box. How does one that is suddenly surprised with a manager that questions everything you do, and all you have to answer is, that's what they train me to do. Third, how do you determine if you're spending too much time not really productive or important? Thanks. That's all over the map. What I'm going to throw out of that, because I have to throw something out of that, is how to deal with your manager at work when the only response you have with, like, why are you doing it this way is because you were trained to do it. That's your manager's problem. That's not your problem. There's my short answer on that. Like, if your manager doesn't like the way you do a thing, then since they're your manager, they should tell you how to do a thing the way they like it done. Or you can go try to figure it out using some of what I'm going to give you today to do. But you're asking me mostly, it seems like, about automation on your homestead and how to determine if the things you're doing on your homestead should be done and how to maybe think about them a little differently to do them better. 3 questions. You asked 4. I'll give you 3. You're lucky, man. Anyway, so let's start out with automation. I am not an automation expert. I wish I was. I would love to be good with Adrenos and stuff like that. Raspberry Pi, sitting back here at my computer, running my whole farm off it. Maybe someday. I don't know. We all have limited time, and we have different things that we're really good at. I'm a technical person, but I'm not that type of technical person. I'm a high-level tech person. I can come up with interesting shit to do with technology that I understand, but implementation is something I've always hired out because it's time-consuming. It's like graphic design. I can do basic graphic design, but I can pay someone to do a better job than I can, get it done faster, and use my time on other things. That's part of the other side of this question. If you're doing something that's incredibly time-consuming and it's not going to be something that you will really benefit long-term from developing the skill, you may want to hire that out. That's one way to think about it. But with automation, I have 3 things, and I have two of them here as props to show you. So if you're listening to the audio version, you can look up the episode, and if you're listening to the audio version, every audio recap of a week has links in it in the show notes to all of the individual videos. So number 1, in the most useful form of automation that I use on my farm on a daily basis right now is dead simple. Even I can work it. It's these little mechanical timers from Sentry. They have little pins. You push them down. Each pin down represents 15 minutes. Pin is down, 15 minutes on. Pin is up, 15 minutes off. It's that simple. And anything you can come up with in intervals, you can do with that. If you just want 12 on, 12 off for lights, push 12 hours down, set the time right here with that little arrow. Boom, it works. It's not like the old ones that have all the little pegs and shit. Those things, the first time I tried to use one, I literally snapped out like a raging, raving boomer and hurled it over my fence. It's back there with hose nozzles and shitty garden trowels, right? That's my raving boomer launch pad. So I was just, I hate timers. I found these, and this is great. It's the most simple form of automation that there is, on and off. And anything that you need to turn on and off, as long as it is within the tolerance of 15 minutes of runtime, this will do it. If you want something to come on 15 minutes a day, twice a day, this will do it. I use this for my plant lights in my indoor systems. I use this for the lights on my fish tanks. Not really, in conjunction with what you're asking, but like that's another example. I use this for ebb and flow in my aquaponics and hydroponics systems, and it works fantastically. The systems that I've come up with to use this with aquaponics, I've never seen anybody use it in aquaponics. It is foolproof. It eliminates bell siphons. You can check out my other videos on that. But this is the simplest form of automation that I've come up with. They're $8 a piece. You get a 2-pack for $16. There's a link in the video notes. The other one, it's also kind of an on-off timer. These are mechanical timers for hoses. And the way they work, you have anywhere between, I think you can do like even 5 minutes. It's just they're marked at 15-minute increments. You turn the knob and you have the water on, and the water runs through the timer, and the timer tick, 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 and when it gets to off, it shuts off. There's a force on if you just want to run it, so you can leave it on a hose that you use regularly. These have saved my butt. I forget shit. I have OCD, right? I have OCD, but I also have ADHD, right? I get really excited about something, I do something, and I walk away from it, and like 2 hours later, my wife's like, is water running somewhere? And I'm like, son of a bitch. And you go out there and there's a flood and the ducks are making mud holes. When I'm filling up a pond, I use one of these. When I want the pond to overflow, I don't want it to overflow for 2 hours. So if I want to overflow a pond into an irrigation system, right, and these are smaller ponds, I'll throw one of these in there and I'll set it for, let's say, 30 minutes, and I'll know what my flow rate is, about how much water needs to get to where overflow is, and then I know how much I'm going to overflow. Really, really simple, on, off. Again, simplest form of automation there is to me is just an on, off. It's like binary code, ones and zeros. That, and then the last one is float valves. And so I have a link in the video notes here for you guys, and I'm talking about float valves like for a stock tank, but there's different types of float valves. Those have been incredibly useful for me. I recently put in a new duck bath, right? And that duck bath is up on what we call Duck Mountain, and it overflows into one of my ponds, and it waters some trees and stuff like that. And if I put the hose in it, turn it on, and forget about it, which I do, not only does it overflow, but it's going to erode Duck Mountain and make a big mess, and it's not good. By just taking a simple float valve, putting in there, plumbing that to my main water line, when I drain it off to do whatever I want it to do, and when I want it to refill, I just turn it on. Once it gets up to where it shuts the float valve off, the water stops, levels right where I want it. Sooner or later, I'll come back around, turn that valve off to release the pressure. When I do that, I always put, if I ever put like a timer, a float valve, anything in a system like that, I always put a splitter on the hose bib itself so that you have another side that you can use without it. And whenever I'm doing that, and when I do come back around and go, oh yeah, I'm supposed to turn that off, I shut that off, and I open the other side of the splitter and take the pressure off that line, since it's not a continuous operation going on. Then when I drain it, I can let it stay dry, I can refill it, it just works perfectly that way. And it's really, really a great thing. And then all my other systems, I just plumb them into pressure with the well, and they're never low. I don't have to worry about filling them up. So those are my main forms of automation. I wish I had more high tech for you, but if you just take those three types of automation, float valves, mechanical timers for irrigation, and mechanical timers for time with electricity, there's a lot of function stacking you can do in there. So this is going to transition over to the other part. Like, how do you figure out what you should be doing or better ways to do a thing? This is why I gave you the groundwork yesterday with should you be doing it. What's your ROI? What's your ROI? That's what you have to look at. And with homesteading, I do think it's important that we also include like recreation, enjoyment, beauty, and you have to quantify those things for yourself. So if you're doing something that takes quite a bit of your time and the output, the yield is not that high, but it gives you a lot of pleasure and it's not interfering with things that do have higher ROIs, that's okay. That's okay. But if you're managing a duck flock and you're doing a larger flock than you need, okay, you got more ducks than you need for you, or chickens for you, and the reason you're doing that is to sell, let's say, eggs to try to pay for your flock, it takes more money and more time to take care of more birds. It doesn't take a lot more time to take care of them, because pretty much you put them away, you let them out, you feed them, you water them, you give them more food, you give them more water. It doesn't really add that much up. But collecting eggs, packaging eggs, selling eggs, that all takes time. And then you're putting more feed into the mix. So I would run a calculation. It's exactly what we've done. How many ducks do you need to have enough surplus that you can sell consistently so you're not wasting your time and money to pay for the other birds. And if the numbers don't work out, we don't do it. We don't do it. And I think that's how we need to look at everything. Like if you're making compost, there are people I see, they put hours and hours a week into compost making, turning compost and stuff like that. If you enjoy it, if you're making a shitload of compost and you're using it or selling it, right on, brother. Me, I don't want to do that. Check out my video called Lazy Man Works One Day a Year Making Compost. That's the way I do it because there's no ROI in it for me. With all the gardening I do, I need what, a yard, 2 yards of compost a year? And if I need bulk, I'm not going to be able to make bulk anyway. So I could maybe increase my production by 20%. Doesn't do me any good, but I would increase my workload like 100% to do that. Or 200 or 300%, honestly, if I'm doing like turn every 4 days and crap. I'm not doing that, right? Turning compost is bad, in the words of Nick Ferguson. If I was running a compost sales system using chickens to make really super high quality compost, and that was my main form of income, we can look at that differently. But when it comes to like how much compost do I need to make, a yard or 2 a year is plenty. It's plenty. I just basically need top dressing for my beds. So if I can do that with almost no work, then that's how I'm going to do that. And I think you have to look at everything that way. If you're putting hours and hours and hours into your gardening, you either need to be getting a huge yield or a lot of enjoyment. And I think that with homesteading, the danger is we convince ourselves that we need certain things, and then we become married to having to do them. I mean, the reality is here, unless something breaks out there, I don't do maybe 30 minutes of work a day that's maintaining and caring for. I guess my largest labor input, which probably is about 30 minutes in of its own, is filling up duck water pans every day. So I fill up 13 of them. They're 21-gallon concrete mixing trays. But when I do that, I am fertilizing and watering tree systems at the same time. So I'm taking something that needs to be done anyway. The ducks need water, right? And the ducks do pay for themselves. Plus, right now we're freezing eggs in surplus of what we can sell right now because we're in a super high season. We've just filled up we're about to go on vacation, so we just called our customers and we wiped our inventory to zero, and we're like, we're not going to have eggs for the next 2-3 weeks, so we got rid of everything. And as they come in now, we got my granddaughter in there cracking them and freezing them for our own use. So we're putting up our stock, then we'll leave, we'll have a caretaker here for about 2 weeks while we're gone, and that'll bring our stock back up to sell our customers. That's all methodically thought out without it being complicated. But without the ducks paying for themselves, we wouldn't be doing any of that. So since they do pay for themselves, it does make sense to make sure that they're well cared for with water. The number of pans I fill is more than they need. But the reason I do it is it works in a pattern system that moves through my whole farm. So I get up in the morning, I go let the birds out, I come in, I have a cup of coffee, I do a little bit of pre-show work, I get my item of the day out, what have you. Then I go back out, dump all the pans, move them to the new location, fill them back up while I have coffee and talk to the ducks. It's enjoyable. I have the time. It makes sense. If I was not getting 2 to 3 things, fertility, watering, and the birds being taken care of that would be really expensive for me to spend a half hour doing that. Because I enjoy it, we'll add that as a 4th thing, and because it gives me time to think. So while I'm doing that, I'm out there working on the other side of your problem here. How can I do this better? So it's like, here's a little tip, not an automation tip, but it's a tip. I went down to Tractor Supply. They sell all their hardware by the pound. And I found the biggest, like, lug nuts that they had. And they were, like, 6 to the pound, right? So they're little, like, about 0.2 pounds each. And I took one of those, and every hose that I use for filling the ducks up, I wired one of those to the end of the hose so there's weight there, so I can just throw it in there, and I don't have to worry about coiling it or anything, right? And then so it's going to take about 1.5 minutes per pan to fill. So I throw it in there, I have the water running, and I walk the area that I'm in. And I think, like, what can I plant here? Where's this problem? So I'm looking at plants for diseases, pruning, anything that needs to be done. And while that's happening, I'll go in and grab my pruners or my Sawzall or whatever. I'll take this limb off here, throw that in the fire pit. And since I move the pans every day, that observation, interaction, and feedback is moving every day with me. So I function stacked the behavior of the individual myself and its interaction with the livestock with the total interaction with the establishment. That's permaculture thinking. And you can apply that anywhere, including back to your boss thing. Like, how can you make the process more efficient? Here's my little tip that I gave somebody in my family who didn't do it. They were going into a new job. They were doing basically like coding and billing and stuff like that. I'm like, build a spreadsheet. I'll help you if you need me to. Monitor your own productivity. While you're doing it, lean out the spreadsheet to where you get it to where it really tells you how good you're doing, because they had QC at this place, but not at a really sophisticated level. They're just basically like raw number of inputs, like accuracy and total billing and all that. Like, figure this all out. Run this for 90 days on yourself, and that will make you judge yourself every day. At the end of that 90-day period, your performance should look really better than it did when it started out. Take that data, go to your boss and say, hey, I'd like a raise, and here's why. The other thing that would have done, if this person would have done that, is it would have moved them right up toward being promoted into management, because who the hell does that? The answer is nobody. You know who does stuff like that? Me. That's what I did my whole life. That's why I had people working for me that were in their 50s when I was in my early 20s, because of things like that. So I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you how to think about what to do. And that's my advice. So that was a lot in one, 16 minutes long. Whew. We will be taking a break, but we'll be back one more time before that break. Miyagi Mornings, episode 100, coming to you tomorrow.